My parents didn't visit me in the hospital, but spent a fortune flying my sister to the Maldes. When I stopped coming to holidays, they acted surprised. The hospital smell still haunts me sometimes. That specific combination of disinfectant and cafeteria food that seeps into everything. I spent 11 days breathing it in after the accident, staring at white walls while my phone stayed mostly silent. 11 days is a long time to lie there with a shattered femur, 3 broken ribs, and a concussion, wondering if your parents will show up. They never did. My name is Erica, and I'm 29 now. This happened 3 years ago, but the wound feels fresh every time I think about it. I've been living in Portland for my job as a graphic designer, about a 4-hour drive from my hometown of Sacramento, where my parents still lived. The accident happened on a Tuesday morning. Some guy ran a red light and T-boned my car on the driver's side. I remember the sound of metal crumpling, the airbag exploding in my face, and then waking up in the ambulance. The first call I made from the hospital was to my mom. I was groggy from the pain medication, barely coherent, but I managed to tell her what happened. She sounded concerned, asked if I was okay, and said she'd see what they could do. That phrase should have been my first warning sign. See what they could do. Like visiting your daughter in the hospital was equivalent to rearranging a dentist appointment. My dad got on the phone briefly. He asked about my car insurance, whether I'd gotten the other driver's information, and if I'd already contacted a lawyer. Practical questions. No, we're coming right now or we'll be there as soon as we can. Just logistics. I waited. Day 1 passed. My coworker Emma came by with magazines and snacks. Day 2, my best friend Marcus drove down from Seattle, a 3-hour trip, to sit with me for an afternoon. Day 3, my manager sent flowers. Day 4, the woman from the apartment next to mine, someone I'd maybe spoken to twice, dropped off a care package. Still no parents. I called again on day 5. My mom answered, and I could hear the television in the background. Some home renovation show she loved watching. Hey, sweetie, how are you feeling? Better, I guess. The pain is pretty bad still. They might need to do another surgery on my leg. I paused, waiting for her to volunteer something. Anything. I thought you guys might have visited by now. There was a long silence. The TV volume decreased. Erica, honey, you know how it is. Your father's back has been acting up and I can't leave him alone when he's like this. Plus, we're planning something special for Madison's birthday next month, and we've been so busy with arrangements. Madison, my youngest sister, 25, freshly graduated from business school and the permanent center of my parents' universe, 3 years younger than me, a lifetime ahead in their affections. Mom, I was in a serious accident. I almost died. Don't be so dramatic. The doctor said, you'd be fine. You're young and healthy. You'll bounce back in no time. That conversation lasted maybe 5 more minutes before I made an excuse to hang up. I lay there in that hospital bed, watching the 4 drip, feeling something inside me crack wider than my broken bones. A nurse named Patricia must have noticed my face. She was this older black woman with kind eyes who'd been checking on me regularly. Family troubles? She asked gently. I just nodded, not trusting my voice. Some people don't know how to show up, she said, adjusting my pillow. That says everything about them and nothing about you. I held on to those words like a lifeline. The real gut punch came about 3 weeks after I was discharged. I was back home struggling with crutches, trying to navigate my second-floor apartment and work remotely. My leg was in a massive cast. I couldn't drive and every movement hurt. Emma had been grocery shopping for me and Marcus was calling every other day to check in. Madison called me one evening, her voice bubbling with excitement. Erica, oh my God, you won't believe this. Mom and Dad are sending me to the Maldives for my birthday. Can you believe it? 2 weeks at this incredible resort. They said it's my graduation present, too, since I worked so hard. My stomach dropped. The Maldives. I know, right? The flights alone are like $3,000 per person. They're coming, too. Making it a family trip. Well, family minus you, But obviously you can't travel right now anyway with your leg situation. Obviously, they're spending how much? I asked, my voice flat. I don't know exactly, but Mom mentioned the whole trip is probably going to be around $25,000. The resort is supposed to be incredible. Overwater bungalows, private beach. The Wikes? $25,000. They couldn't drive 4 hours to visit me in the hospital, but they could spend $25,000 on a tropical vacation. The math wasn't mathing, as the kids say. That's great, Mads. I'm happy for you. Are you okay? You sound weird. Just tired. Pain medication makes me foggy. We hung up shortly after. I sat on my couch, staring at my phone, feeling that crack inside me split completely open. This wasn't just neglect or forgetfulness. This was a choice, a clear, calculated choice about who mattered in our family and who didn't. Let me give you some context. Growing up, Madison was always the golden child. Straight A's, captain of the volleyball team, student council president, the works. I was the artsy kid who got mostly BS, spent lunch period in the art room, and went to a state school instead of somewhere prestigious. Madison got a new car when she turned 16. I got my grandmother's old Honda with a busted AC. Madison's college was fully paid for. I worked 2 jobs and took out loans. I'd always told myself it wasn't favoritism, just circumstances. They had more money by the time Madison came along. She needed more support because she was more ambitious. I made excuses for years, building a complicated mental framework to explain away the inequality. The hospital thing shattered that framework completely. I spent the next few months healing physically while something else calcified inside me. Anger maybe, or just clarity. I started seeing my family dynamics from a different angle, like adjusting a lens on a camera, and suddenly everything comes into sharp focus. Thanksgiving was approaching. My mom called in early November. Erica, honey, we need your help planning Thanksgiving dinner. Madison wants to do a modern twist this year. Maybe a Friendsgiving vibe. And you're so creative. I thought you could help with decorations and table settings. I'm not coming to Thanksgiving this year. Silence on the other end. What do you mean you're not coming? It's Thanksgiving. Family tradition. I'm making other plans. What plans? With who? Friends. It wasn't even a lie. Emma had invited me to her family celebration, and I'd accept it. Erica, this is ridiculous. You can't just skip Thanksgiving. Watch me. I hung up before she could respond. My hands were shaking, but it felt good. Terrifying, but good. Thanksgiving came and went. I spent it with Emma's loud, chaotic, wonderful family who argued about politics and hugged too hard and made me feel more welcome in one day than I'd felt at my own family's table in years. My phone buzzed with messages from my mom, then my dad, then Madison. I ignored them all. Christmas was next. Same pattern. My mom called 3 weeks in advance. Erica, we need to talk about this attitude. You missed Thanksgiving and now you're telling me you won't be here for Christmas either. That's correct. What is going on with you? Ever since your accident, you've been so distant and cold. The audacity of that statement nearly made me laugh since my accident that you couldn't be bothered to visit me during you mean. We explained that your father's back was fine enough to fly to the Maldes a month later. Another long silence. That was different. That was a special occasion for your sister, and me being hospitalized wasn't special enough. You're being unfair. We had a lot going on. I had broken bones, Mom. I was alone in a hospital for almost 2 weeks. You had friends visiting. Madison told us all about how you had visitors. So, they'd been keeping tabs, just not caring enough to be among those visitors themselves. That stung in a new way. I'm not coming for Christmas. Please don't ask again. She tried arguing more, but I ended the call. Madison texted me later that night, a long paragraph about how I was being selfish and ruining family traditions and making everything about me. I didn't bother responding. Easter, Mother's Day, 4th of July, my dad's birthday. I skipped them all. Each time my phone would blow up with calls and messages ranging from confused to angry to guilt-tripping. Madison sent me articles about the importance of family. My mom left voicemails crying about how I was breaking her heart. My dad texted that I was being immature and needed to get over whatever was bothering me. But here's the thing. None of them actually asked what was wrong. None of them said, "We're sorry we didn't visit you in the hospital." None of them acknowledged that their actions might have hurt me. It was all about how my absence was affecting them, inconveniencing them, disrupting their holidays. I started building a new life. Emma became like a sister to me, the kind who actually shows up. Marcus and his husband Trevor included me in their friend group. And suddenly, I had Sunday game nights and weekend hiking trips and people who texted to check if I'd eaten lunch. I went to therapy and started unpacking decades of feeling like the backup child, the one who didn't quite measure up. The therapy sessions were harder than I expected. Dr. Chen had this way of asking questions that made me confront things I'd buried for years. She wanted me to talk about my childhood, and at first I insisted it was fine, normal, nothing traumatic. "Your parents didn't abuse you," I said during our third session. "They fed me, clothed me, sent me to school. I had a roof over my head." I sound ungrateful complaining about any of this. Emotional neglect is still neglect, Dr. Chen said gently. The absence of something necessary can be just as damaging as the presence of something harmful. I started keeping a journal at her suggestion, writing down memories, moments I dismissed or rationalized over the years. The exercise was brutal. Page after page of small paper cuts that I pretended didn't hurt. Like the time in the 8th grade when I won second place in a statewide art competition. My teacher made a huge deal about it, said I had real talent. I came home so excited holding the certificate and the $50 prize check. My mom glanced at it and said, "That's nice, honey." Before turning back to help Madison study for her algebra test, my dad was at one of Madison's volleyball games. The certificate ended up in a drawer somewhere, never framed, never mentioned again, on my high school graduation. Madison had been in middle school then, and she'd had some important volleyball tournament the same weekend. My parents came to my graduation ceremony, but left immediately after to drive Madison to her game 3 hours away. No celebration dinner, no quality time, just a quick "we're so proud of you" before they were gone. I'd gone to Denny's with some friends instead, pretending I didn't care that my parents prioritized a middle school sports game over my high school graduation. College movie and day. My parents drove me to campus, helped me unload my stuff, and then left within 2 hours because they had to get back from Madison's birthday dinner that evening. My roommate's parents stayed for most of the day, took us out to lunch, helped us set up our room. I watched them interact with their daughter and felt something twist in my chest that I couldn't name then. Envy maybe, or grief, or something I'd never had. Writing it all down made the pattern impossible to ignore. These weren't isolated incidents. This was the entire architecture of our family dynamic. Madison was the sun and the rest of us were planets in orbit around her. The worst part was realizing that I participated in my own diminishment. I'd learned early to make myself small, to not ask for too much, to below maintenance. Being the easy child felt like the only way to earn love in a household where attention was a finite resource already allocated elsewhere. Dr. Chen asked me once what I would tell my younger self if I could go back. "I'd tell her she deserved better," I said. And then I cried for 20 minutes straight. Emma noticed the changes in me. We were having coffee one Saturday afternoon when she brought it up. "You seem different lately," she said. "Lighter somehow, but also sadder. Therapy is making me face things I've avoided forever. Is it helping?" I thought about it. "Yeah, it hurts like hell, but yay." Emma reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "For what it's worth, I think you're incredibly brave. Most people just keep swallowing poison and calling it medicine." That image stuck with me. How many years had I spent swallowing poison, convincing myself it was nourishment? Around this time, I started noticing things about my friendships that I'd never paid attention to before. The way Emma always remembered my favorite coffee order. How Marcus would send me articles about things I'd mentioned being interested in weeks earlier. The way Trevor saved me a seat at game nights without me having to ask. These weren't grand gestures. They were small, consistent acts of consideration. They were paying attention. They were showing up. I'd spent so long thinking love meant blood relation and obligation. It never occurred to me that real love might look like someone remembering you like dope milk in your latte, or texting to make sure you got home safe, or canceling their plans to sit with you in a hospital. I also started dating around this time. His name was Ben, an urban planner I'd met through Marcus at a dinner party. He was funny and kind and refreshingly straightforward about his interest. We took things slow, which I appreciated given everything else I was processing. My birthday came around the 1st of March after I'd stopped attending family events. I didn't expect anything from my parents, and they delivered on those expectations. A text from my mom at 9 p.m. that said, "Happy birthday, sweetie," with a cake emoji. Nothing from my dad. Madison posted a throwback photo of us as kids on Instagram with some generic caption about sisterhood, but she didn't actually text me directly. Meanwhile, Emma had secretly coordinated with my other friends to completely redecorate my apartment while I was at work. I came home to streamers, balloons, a homemade banner, and 10 people yelling surprise. They made my favorite foods, bought me thoughtful gifts, and spent the entire evening making me feel celebrated. Ben, who I'd only been seeing for a few weeks at that point, gave me a vintage art supply kit he'd found at an estate sale. "You mentioned wanting to get back into painting," he said when I teared up. "Seemed like the universe telling me what to get you." Contrast that with my 25th birthday, the last one I'd spent with my family. My parents had taken us all to dinner at a chain restaurant. They'd sung happy birthday, and I'd blown out a candle on the grocery store cake. The conversation had mostly centered on Madison's recent promotion at Ho In Township. I'd gotten a gift card to Target. It was fine. Forgettable. The kind of birthday where you're grateful people remembered, but you don't feel particularly special. This birthday, my 26th, surrounded by friends who'd put thought and effort into celebrating me. I felt cherished, seen, valued. The comparison was stark and painful and clarifying all at once. Dr. Chen helped me work through the guilt I felt about being happier without my family. "You're not a bad person for protecting yourself," she reminded me constantly. "You're not obligated to set yourself on fire to keep other people warm." But the guilt was persistent. I'd been raised to believe family came first, always, no matter what. Walking away from that felt like betraying something fundamental. Some nights I'd lie awake wondering if I was overreacting, if I was being too sensitive, if I should just suck it up and go back. Then I'd remember the hospital, the 11 days of hoping they'd walk through that door, the crushing disappointment each time a nurse appeared instead of my parents, the humiliation of having to explain to well-meaning visitors that no, my family wasn't coming. They were too busy, and the anger would return hot and clarifying. I wasn't overreacting. I was finally reacting appropriately. My therapist, Dr. Chen, asked me during one session why I felt obligated to maintain relationships with people who clearly didn't prioritize me. "Because they are my parents," I said like it was obvious. That's not actually an answer to my question. She was right. I'd been operating on the assumption that family meant unconditional obligation, that blood ties trumped everything else, that I owe them my presence regardless of how they treated me. But sitting in her office saying it out loud, it sounded hollow. Around the 1-year anniversary of my accident, my mom showed up at my apartment unannounced. I'd moved to a ground floor unit by then and was fully healed. Thank God, because the surprise of seeing her through my peephole nearly made me stumble. I considered not answering. My hand hovered over the door or knob for a long moment. Finally, I opened it. Erica. She looked older than I remembered, more gray in her hair. Or maybe I just hadn't been paying attention before. "We need to talk. You should have called first. You don't answer my calls anymore." Fair point. I stepped aside and let her in. My apartment was nice. I'd redecorated after moving, filled it with art prints and plants and thrift furniture. I'd refinished myself. It felt like me in a way my childhood bedroom never had. Mom looked around, taking it all in. This is lovely, Barry. Was Saturday. She perched on the edge of my couch like she might need to make a quick escape. Your father and I are worried about you. We don't understand what happened. You just cut us off out of nowhere. It wasn't out of nowhere. Then explain it to me, please. So, I did. I laid it all out. The hospital, the loneliness, the fear, the pain, the phone calls where they made excuses, the mails trip that happened weeks later, the pattern of prioritizing Madison that I'd finally stopped making excuses for. I talked for maybe 20 minutes straight. Everything I'd been holding in for over a year. She listened. At least she stayed quiet. When I finished, she was silent for a long time. We didn't realize it meant so much to you, she finally said. I was in the hospital. I know, but you said yourself you had visitors. Friends came. We thought you were fine. Did you think I was fine, or was that just easier than admitting you should have come? Her face tightened. That's not fair. You're acting like we're these terrible parents who never cared about you. We raised you, provided for you, loved you. Did you love me the same way you love Madison? That's a horrible thing to ask. Is it? Because from where I'm sitting, the evidence suggests otherwise. She stood up abruptly. I came here to try to fix this, to be the bigger person, and you're throwing accusations at me. You're not even willing to meet me halfway. Meet you halfway. Mom, you haven't even apologized. You haven't acknowledged that you hurt me. You're just upset that I'm not showing up to play my role in the family anymore. We're your family, Erica. Family means showing up even when things are hard. The hypocrisy of that statement coming from her was almost funny. You're right, I said quietly. Family should show up, even when it's hard, even when it's inconvenient, even when it's just a 4-hour drive to a hospital. She left shortly after. No resolution, no apology, no real acknowledgement of anything I'd said. Just disappointment that I wasn't falling in line. Madison called me a few days later, furious. Do you have any idea what you've done? Mom has been crying for days. Dad won't even talk about you. You've destroyed this family. I haven't destroyed anything. I just stopped pretending everything was fine. You're being so selfish. Not everything is about you, Erica. You're right. Nothing was ever about me. That was kind of the problem. God, you're impossible. You know what? Fine. If you want to throw away your family over one mistake, that's on you. One mistake, Madison. They've been choosing you over me our entire lives. The hospital was just when I finally saw it clearly. That's such you're just jealous because I work harder and achieve more. This isn't about favoritism. It's about you being bitter. That was the moment I realized Madison would never get it. She'd been the recipient of the favoritism for so long that it just felt normal to her, like the default state of the universe. Asking her to see it was like asking a fish to see water. Okay, Mads, you're right. I'm just bitter and jealous. You win, Erica. I hung up. Year 2 of my self-imposed exile was easier. The guilt had mostly faded, replaced by something closer to peace. I spent Thanksgiving with Marcus and Trevor's found family. Christmas was with Emma and her chaos crew, Ben, and I got more serious as the months went on. I started dating someone, a guy named Ben, who worked in urban planning and made me laugh and crucially thought it was completely reasonable that I wasn't in contact with my parents. Some people are toxic even when they don't mean to be, he said once over dinner. You're allowed to protect yourself from that. My birthday rolled around in March. I turned 27. Emma threw me a surprise party. 20 people showed up, friends I collected over the past 2 years, people who genuinely cared about me. We ate too much cake and played board games until midnight, and I felt more celebrated than I had at any family gathering in memory. My parents sent a card. No money, no gift, just a card with a generic message about hoping I was well. Madison didn't acknowledge it at all. I thought I was fine with that. I'd built a good life, a full life without them. I had people who loved me and showed up for me. The family I'd chosen was better than the one I'd been born into. Several months passed. Summer came and went. Then in early September, my grandmother died. She was my dad's mom, 92 years old. And while her death wasn't unexpected, it still hit hard. Grandma Linda had always been kind to me. She'd been the one to encourage my art, to tell me it was okay to be different from Madison. When I was little, I'd spend weeks at her house during the summer, and she'd let me paint in her garage and never once criticize my work. The funeral was unavoidable. I had to go. Walking into that church felt like entering enemy territory. My parents were in the front row with Madison. I slipped into a pew near the back. Several relatives I hadn't seen in years waved at me, looking confused about where I'd been. My Aunt Susan came over before the service started. "Erica, sweetie, we've missed you at gatherings. Where have you been hiding?" "Just busy with work and life." "Well, you need to make time for family. Your parents have been so worried about you." I just nodded, not having the energy to explain that their worry had come about 2 years too late. The service was beautiful. The pastor talked about Grandma Linda's kindness, her faith, her love for her family. Madison gave a eulogy that made several people cry. I sat there feeling disconnected from all of it, like I was watching through glass. At the reception afterward, held at my parents' house, I tried to stay invisible. I helped in the kitchen, restocked serving platters, kept myself busy. My mom found me in a way. "Erica, you came?" "Of course I came. I loved Grandma Linda. Can we talk, please?" "Your father wants to as well." I followed her to the study, that same room where I'd been lectured about bad report cards as a kid. Dad was already there looking uncomfortable in his suit. They both Saturday. I remained standing. "We've been thinking. Mom started about what you said about the hospital and maybe we could have handled things differently." "Could have. Maybe not. We were wrong or we're sorry. Just the barest acknowledgement that perhaps possibly their actions weren't perfect." "Okay," I said neutrally. "We want you to come back to family events. We want to fix this. What does fixing it look like to you?" They exchanged glances. "We all move past this." Dad said, "You stop holding grudges. We all try harder to stay connected. Fresh start." "So, I just forget that you chose a vacation over visiting me in the hospital. I pretend that years of being the second priority child didn't happen. I show up to holidays and smile and act like we're a normal, functional family." "You're being dramatic again," Mom said, a familiar edge creeping into her voice. "We're trying here, Erica. We're extending an olive branch. The least you could do is be gracious about it." And there it was, the real issue. They wanted me to come back on their terms without any real change or accountability. They wanted the appearance of a whole family without doing the work of actually repairing what they'd broken. "I appreciate the offer," I said carefully, "but I don't think I'm ready for that." "When will you be ready?" Dad asked. "It's been 2 years. Maybe never. I don't know." Mom's face hardened. "So, you're going to throw away your entire family over this? Miss watching your sister get married someday? Miss future grandchildren? All because we didn't visit you one time in the hospital." One time. She said it like it was a singular isolated incident instead of the culmination of a lifetime of being treated as less than. "It wasn't one time, Mom. It was every time you chose Madison over me. Every time you dismissed my feelings or my achievements. Every time you made it clear that I was the backup child, the one you loved out of obligation rather than genuine priority." "That is not true," she said, standing up now too. "We love you and your sister equally. Actions speak louder than words. Your actions have been screaming at me my whole life." I just finally started listening. I left the study. Madison caught me in the hallway. "Real nice, Erica. Making Grandma's funeral about you and your victim complex." I didn't make it about anything. They cornered me. "You could have just agreed to come to Christmas. It would have cost you nothing to make them happy. It would have cost me my self-respect." She rolled her eyes. "You're so dramatic. Honestly, we're all better off without you at holidays anyway. You just bring everyone down with your dark cloud energy. That should have hurt. A few years ago, it would have. But standing there looking at my sister who'd benefited from favoritism her entire life and couldn't even see it, I felt nothing but pity. Take care of yourself, Madison. I left. The drive back to Portland gave me time to think. I'd been hoping somewhere deep down that they'd surprise me, that they'd give me a real apology, acknowledge the hurt they caused, show some willingness to change. Instead, they'd confirmed everything I already knew. They wanted me to come back and play my role in their family narrative, but they had no interest in examining why I'd left that role in the first place. The weeks after Grandma's funeral were strange. I felt like I'd closed a door I'd been holding slightly ajar for almost 2 years. That conversation in the study had been my final test, and they'd failed it completely. There was grief in that, even though it wasn't a surprise. I found myself thinking about Grandma Linda a lot. She'd been the only one who seemed to notice the imbalance. Once when I was maybe 14, she'd pulled me aside during a family gathering. "Your parents don't see it," she'd said quietly, watching my mom fuss over Madison's latest award. "But I do. You're special, too, Erica. Don't let anyone make you forget that." I brushed it off at the time, uncomfortable with the acknowledgement of something I wasn't supposed to notice, but she'd seen it. She'd known. I wished I'd talked to her more about it before she died, asked her if she'd ever said anything to my parents if she tried to intervene. But maybe it wouldn't have mattered. You can't force people to see what they are determined to overlook. Work became a welcome distraction. I'd been leading a major rebranding project for a tech startup, and throwing myself into it felt therapeutic. My boss, a woman named Jennifer, who'd built her own company from the ground up, pulled me aside one afternoon. "You've been killing it lately," she said. "The client is thrilled with your concepts. I'm thinking about you for a senior designer position we're opening up. Interested? A promotion recognition based purely on my merit, my effort, my talent. No favoritism, no family dynamics, just me and my work." "Absolutely," I said, trying to keep my voice professional, even though I wanted to cry happy tears. "You seem surprised," Jennifer observed. "I guess I'm not used to people noticing my work." She gave me a thoughtful look. "Erica, you're talented as hell. Anyone who doesn't see that isn't paying attention, and that's their loss, not yours." I got the promotion 2 weeks later along with a significant raise. I called Emma first. "Holy!" she screamed into the phone. "We're celebrating. I'm taking you out tonight. No arguments." Marcus and Trevor threw me a congratulations dinner at their place. Ben showed up with champagne and kissed me like I had won an Oscar. Everyone made speeches about how much I deserved this, how proud they were of me, how my talent had always been obvious. My parents didn't know about the promotion. I hadn't told them, and it didn't occur to me, too. That realization hit me during the dinner party. There was a time when they would have been my first call when I would have desperately wanted their approval and pride. Now, they weren't even in the equation. The absence of that need felt like freedom. Ben and I had been dating for about 6 months at this point, and things were getting serious. He'd been patient with me, understanding about my family situation without trying to fix it or minimize it. One night, lying in bed after celebrating my promotion, he asked me something unexpected. "Do you think you'll ever reconcile with them?" I stared at the ceiling, considering. I don't know. Part of me wants to believe they'll have some magical revelation and become different people, but that's not realistic. They are who they are. Would you go back if they apologized? Really apologize? I mean, an apology would be a start, but it couldn't just be words. They'd have to actually change. Show me consistently over time that they valued me, that I wasn't just a child they checked off a list. I turned to look at him. "Does it bother you that I don't talk to my family?" "No. I think it's brave. My parents are great. So, I can't fully understand what you went through, but I can see how much lighter you become since you set those boundaries. That tells me everything I need to know." He pulled me closer. "Besides, your chosen family is pretty awesome. I'm honored to be part of it." I fell a little more in love with him in that moment. The holidays rolled around again. Year 3 of my absence from family gatherings. This time, The guilt was minimal. Emma's parents had officially adopted me as an honorary daughter, and her mom sent me a heartfelt invitation to Thanksgiving with a handwritten note about how much they enjoyed having me. "You're part of our family now," it read. No obligation, just love. I cried reading that ugly, cathartic tears. Christmas was at Marcus and Trevor's new house. They had recently moved in together and wanted to host for the first time. About 15 of us gathered in their living room, exchanging gifts and drinking too much spiked eggnog and laughing until our sides hurt. Marcus raised a toast at one point. "To found family," he said, looking directly at me. "To the people we choose and who choose us back." Everyone cheered. I felt so full of gratitude I could barely breathe. My phone buzzed with a text from my mom. "Just checking in. Hope you're having a nice holiday." I put the phone away without responding. Later that night, Ben and I were walking back to my apartment through the snowy streets. He'd had enough eggnog to be cheerfully tipsy, swinging our joined hands between us. "I love you," he said suddenly, in case I haven't made that clear enough. It was the first time either of us had said it. I stopped walking, turned to face him under a streetlight. "I love you, too." We kissed while snow fell around us, and it felt like something from a movie. The kind of moment I dreamed about as a teenager before life got complicated. Walking away from my family had made space for this, for love that was freely given, not rationed, for a celebration that was genuine, not performative, for relationships built on mutual respect and effort. I'd spent so long thinking I was broken, that there was something fundamentally unlovable about me that explained why my parents chose Madison over me again and again. But surrounded by people who valued me, I finally understood the truth. There was nothing wrong with me. There never had been. They were the ones who couldn't see what they had. They were the ones who chosen to lose me, and that was entirely their loss to bear. Da Chen asked me in our next session how I felt about the encounter. Sad, I admitted, but also free. I kept hoping they'd prove me wrong. Show me that I'd been too harsh or misunderstood their actions, but they just proved me right again. Is there relief in that? In knowing you made the right choice? I thought about it. Yeah, there is. Life went on. Ben and I got more serious. Emma's family basically adopted me. Marcus and Trevor asked me to be a bridesmaid in their wedding when they renewed their vows. I got promoted at work. My art started selling online, a side business I developed during recovery. I built a life I was proud of, surrounded by people who chose me every day. My parents send cards on holidays now. Generic ones, the kind you buy in bulk. Madison got engaged 6 months ago. She didn't tell me herself. I saw it on Instagram. The wedding is planned for next summer. I haven't received an invitation yet and doubt I will. Sometimes people ask me if I regret cutting them off. The answer is complicated. I regret that it was necessary. I regret that they couldn't be the parents I needed. I regret that my childhood felt like a constant audition for affection I never quite earned. But I don't regret choosing myself. I don't regret building boundaries. I don't regret walking away from a dynamic that diminished me. The truth is, they are not terrible people. They didn't beat me or abandon me in any dramatic, obvious way. They just loved my sister more. Maybe they didn't even realize they were doing it. Maybe in their minds, they treated us equally. But intent doesn't erase impact. I spent my whole life making myself smaller to accommodate their favoritism, telling myself it wasn't that bad, that I was being too sensitive, that family meant accepting scraps and being grateful. The hospital was just when I ran out of excuses to give them. People talk about forgiveness like it's this magic thing that heals all wounds. But forgiveness without change is just enabling. They'd have to acknowledge what they did wrong before I could forgive it. They'd have to show me through consistent actions over time that they valued me as much as Madison. They'd have to earn their way back into my life. They haven't done any of that. They probably never will. So yeah, I'm the daughter who doesn't come to holidays. I'm the one they probably complain about to relatives, painting me as ungrateful or difficult or cold. They get to be the victims in their version of events, the bewildered parents whose daughter inexplicably abandoned them. But I know the truth. I was in a hospital bed, scared and in pain, and they couldn't be bothered to drive 4 hours. A month later, they flew halfway around the world for my sister's birthday. That tells me everything I need to know about where I stood in their priorities. I'm building a family now that chooses me back. That shows up